Welcome to the Daily Energize podcast, your quick dose of clarity, quick tips, and the spark you need to shine bright. Here's your host, Spencer Jones.
What's up, Energizer? Spencer Jones here in another episode of the Daily Energize. Thank you so much for hopping in, joining me today. And if you could do me a favor, if you haven't already yet, please hit follow and subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. And if you already have followed and subscribed, thank you so much. I'm incredibly grateful. And if you know anyone who'd be interested or this podcast could help them or serve them in any way, shape, or form, please share it with them. Let's get this into more hands, or is it more ears in this case? Whatever it is. If you could just share it out, I'd appreciate that as well. Thank you so much. I want to talk about boundaries today because I've noticed, well, I'll be honest, I struggled with boundaries for years and years. And I see a lot of our energizers struggling with boundaries as well. And let's be specific, because there's lots of areas in our life that we can have boundaries. Now remember, boundaries aren't necessarily just this wall that says, nope, I'm done, get out of here, whatever, right? Like this wall that stops this energy. I like to think of boundaries more like, sometimes it needs to be a wall, but oftentimes I think of them more like a bridge back to myself, because that means that if I get too far away from who I want to be and all those things that, that are opposing my boundary, well, then I'm not being my true or best self. So they're a bridge back to coming back to me, to being my full, true, authentic self. Now, you could do that in your personal life with your family and friends, boundaries if you work from home. There's so many different areas. And one of the things we have for our Energy Nexus members is this boundary script. And so it's basically a boundary script creator. So helping you create boundaries that you can see and say and have, but actually hold and sustain as well. And it shows you how to do that as well. And that's one of the things we discuss in Energy Nexus in our 12-month transformation pathway. But in any case, let's talk about boundaries specifically at work, because work can be this huge energy drain and it could pull us off of our focused energy, right? Out of alignment if we're not careful. And so these boundaries can help you stay in alignment, or if you notice yourself getting out, it can help you that bridge back into alignment. So when I say energy boundaries at work, it's one of the first things that come to your mind. For me, energy boundaries, I think of time, of not spending more time than needed. And I'll come back to some of these here. But just like brainstorming. So the timing, the hours I spend at work, the people, coworkers, and the conversations, feedback, ruminating on especially negative feedback, the projects I say yes to. I think that's probably good for now, but there's so many other things that boundaries could probably fit into. Let's address them a little bit. So one of my clients, one of our energizers, she used to work a ton of overtime and just stayed late multiple times a week, especially when she had to get these reports done, these projects, and they happened every month. There was one, then twice a year there was these bigger ones that she had to do for her work, and she would spend hours after her normal hours working overtime. Although she was salaried, so it didn't really matter, but working those extra hours away from her young kids just to get these things done. And so when we started to work together, okay, well, let's talk about that, right? She didn't want to have that. She wanted to have a boundary where she's like, nope, I want to go home when it's 5 o'clock or whatever her time was. She's ready to, she wants to go home. And so, okay, well, what can you do to help that? What do you need to set in place? Boundaries you need to set in place to make sure that you can get the work done when you can. And so what we realized is she was saying yes to different things and doing other tasks that were less important or she didn't need to do that took away time from completing those bigger projects. And so after she started honing that, and now she very, very, very rarely, maybe once a year, she has to spend a couple hours after work. That's it. And even then, it's once a year at most, right? I think we had once in like 2 or 3 years she had to do that. That we've been working together. So, okay, the project. So, what are you saying yes to? Yes to those projects. And some of those projects like hers, she has to do. It's part of her job, right? There's big things that she has to do. Or if you're trying to move up in the company and so you have to do these extra things, well, how can you prioritize your time, your energy, your focus so you're focusing on those higher quality tasks and things that move the needle as opposed to those more redundant tasks and different things? Maybe you can delegate those to somebody else or streamline it in a way that opens up some more time for you. Now, what about, and just being firm, like, nope, I'm leaving at this time, right? She got so used to staying late that then it was just the thing that she did. So she had to train herself and set a boundary with herself, like, nope, I'm going home at 5. Nope, I'm not going to go in early. I'm going to, leave when the kids get into school, and then I'm going to leave at 5 o'clock or whatever that time was for her. I'm going to leave, right? And be firm with herself. She had to set that boundary with her. And then what about for like the conversations at work, right? You might love your coworkers and, talk around the water cooler. Is that still, do people still call it that? I don't know. But, when you're just hanging out chatting with your coworkers, that's fun and it's great. Now, if it gets into gossiping and things like that, well, that's more negative and all that. But I'm not even going to go touch on that. But the time that you're talking with your coworkers is time you're not getting work done. And while I'm all for having conversations with coworkers, trust me, I love having conversations with people, just chit-chatting and whatnot. That's great. And do that at times, but also make sure you leave enough time to get work done. So you're kind of like, all right, I'm allotting 10 minutes to have this conversation, whatever. You don't just say that to them, but in your mind, that's what you're thinking. And then you leave when it's time to end that conversation and you go back to work, right? So you're giving yourself some time to do that, but also time to focus and work as opposed to being sucked into a half-hour-long conversation and all of a sudden you didn't get done what you needed to get done during that time. But also like those negative coworkers, the ones who are just negative Nancy's and pulling you down and gossiping and all that, say no. Stop those conversations. Say, oh, you have work to do, because you probably do. So find those different ways to set boundaries for yourself at work that work for you. And if you want our boundary scripts, you chat with me and we can see if, the Energy Nexus program can help and serve you with these boundaries, but also in other areas of your life. But just know that you are worthy of boundaries. Boundaries at home, but also boundaries at work. Just because they give you a paycheck doesn't mean you don't deserve or need, I don't like the word deserve, but boundaries, right? You can have boundaries, even if they're giving you a paycheck. So it's finding out what works best for you. All right. Thank you so much for being here. Hopefully that gives you something to think a little bit about. And I invite you, just think, what kind of boundaries can you set at work that serve you in a positive, beautiful way? All right. Thanks for hopping in, joining me. Keep being you. Keep shining bright. And until next time, I'll catch you later.